Eery Crime. About 4 months before I moved out of 144 Broadway, around March of 1991, I was heading home after visiting my mother. It was an unseasonably warm night for March, so walking home was a pleasure. It was about 11:15 at night, and I planned to stop at home long enough to check my mail, change clothes, and then head back out. I turned onto Broadway at about 14th Street, heading for my building near 15th, when I noticed 2 police cruisers in front of the place. My apartment had been broken into twice in the past, so I quickened my pace and approached one of the officers, whom I knew. He was standing by the front door of the TV repair shop on the first floor, which was gaping open. Officer S asked me how long the shop had been closed. I told him a little over 2 years at that point, since the owner, my landlord, had been placed in a nursing home and died. His son had been there since, but that had been several months previous. By this time, we'd entered the shop, and I looked around. Nothing seemed any different from when I'd last been inside, except for 2 sets of footprints in the dust, belonging to the other 2 officers who'd found the store open. Everything the owner had left behind was, as far as I could tell, still in place, covered with dust. The officer then asked me if I knew of any entrance to the shop, other than the front one and the 2 in the rear, which I answered in the negative. There was a door directly in the back, and a rear door leading from outside to the basement. We checked these and found them both chained shut and padlocked, the chains festooned with cobwebs. Officer S said to me, "I hate these weird ones. How are you gonna write them up?" As he gestured to the open front door with his flashlight, the door that was plainly broken from the inside. Unseen entity while investigating a crime scene. I am a police officer in Florida. One night, while working the midnight shift, I was dispatched along with another police officer to the scene of a delay burglary call. The burglary had occurred at a vacant residence, which was located in a rural area and located directly next to an old, closed-down and vacant feed store. The feed store had been broken into as well, so myself and the other officer had a lot of work ahead of us. I entered into the vacant feed store through the front door and immediately heard what sounded like a pissed sound. It immediately made me perk up because it legitimately sounded like someone was saying piss, as if to get my attention. I looked around with my flashlight and did not find anything there. Thinking my mind was playing tricks on me, I continued about my work and began processing the crime scene for evidence. It should be noted that I was completely in work mode and not thinking about anything ghost-related or paranormal-related whatsoever. After a short time, I exited the feed store to retrieve more supplies from my patrol car. When I walked back into the feed store, this time, I immediately heard a loud, quick whistle. It was loud and distinctive enough to make me snap my head around, again sounding as if someone was trying to get my attention. This time I yelled out, "Hello?" and looked around again with my flashlight. Nothing there, nothing. For a second, I truly thought maybe the suspect in the break-in was still inside and trying to play games or something. But I dispelled that notion after I searched the whole inside of the store and found nothing. By this point in time, I was slightly freaked out but knew that I still had a crime scene to process and a report to write. I shrugged the noises off and concentrated at the task at hand. After a while, I had finished in the feed store and responded back to the original residence, where the other officer was processing his crime scene. I did not mention what I heard next door, as the other officer probably would have laughed and called me a scaredy cat. While I was helping him process his scene, he told me the owner of the vacant residence had gone home, as the processing was going to take a long time, and it was about 2 a.m. in the morning. After about 15 minutes or so, we both distinctly heard a sound of a car door opening and closing. Thinking it was the owner, I mentioned to the other officer that the owner must have returned to the scene to check our progress. Only thing is, no one came into the residence. About 5 to 10 minutes later, we both heard a car door open and close a second time. This time I said, "I wonder what that guy is doing out there." Again, we both shrugged it off. Now picture this. My patrol car is parked directly in front of the residence, with the front door wide open, and my headlights on to provide us light in the house. The house was vacant, and therefore had no power. About 5 minutes later, we heard a car door open and close for a third time. This time, the sound of the door closing was significantly closer, and sounded exactly like my patrol car door. Thinking that some crazy person had maybe entered my patrol car to try and steal it, we run out immediately after hearing the sound. We were outside by my patrol car in about 3 seconds. Now, I do not know any human being who could escape detection in 3 seconds. But I swear to you, the owner was not outside. In fact, we did not see one human soul outside at all. No sound of anyone running away, no one hiding underneath or inside our patrol cars, no, nothing. The other officer was more freaked out than I was. We agreed never to talk about it. To this day, this event remains unexplained. The Newspaper Project. It was a rainy November of 2006, if I remember it right. We were asked to create our own newspaper. That means literally visiting police stations, murder or accident scenes, funeral homes, and the like. This is because we need factual information, since our subject back then was one of our majors. I took broadcast journalism, by the way. When we finally finished editing our news articles, the entire group went to our house for an overnight layout. I was very, very sick back then because I got wet for several days trying to get my good scoop for my news. While using our home computer, something went wrong with the CD. It would not load in the CD-ROM, so my classmate Daniel suggested that we go to his house because he got a backup file for our files in his computer. They told me to just stay at home and communicate with them through text messaging, since I was dead sick. Everyone agreed with the suggestion and packed up our stuff, and then another classmate, Susie, who is also a friend, sat on my parents' bed. We were doing the project in the master's bedroom since the computer was set up there. Her face was blank for a minute, and when she recovered, she told the whole group to just stay in our house and do what we can for the project. Daniel asked her why, but she just kept on saying, "No, please, let's just stay here, or if you want, we can leave early in the morning after sunrise." I was just laying on the bed, looking at her because I knew something was wrong. After a few more minutes of convincing, the group finally decided to wait till sunrise. By then, my mom came and told me to take a rest in my room, and she'll be sleeping with me so I can sleep well. I then went to my room, which was located in the second floor, and laid on my bed. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. But then after a few minutes, I started seeing this very bright light on a corner near my closet. I was seeing that bright light with my eyes closed. It was very bright, and then I started to see a form, a body of a man wearing slacks, and I think a long-sleeved shirt. I don't know if he was wearing white clothes or if he was just shining, because all I knew was that he was white and shining. He was a guy I knew for sure because of his shape, but he was headless. The moment I realized he was headless, he was gone. I wasn't scared though, I've seen spirits around. After I calmed myself, I texted Susie, because before I went to my room, she was crying. I said, "What did you see?" She replied, she said she just suddenly saw right before her eyes a scene. Daniel being held by a hold-upper, and they were about to cut his head. She wasn't sure if everyone was at the scene, but she knew some of them were there. But the main focus was with Daniel. She said that was the reason why she burst out into tears. She was hell scared by what she saw and thought it was a premonition of something bad. That was the reason why she convinced the group not to leave. I then told her about what I saw, the headless guy, and we both agreed that what we saw were connected. After a few hours, probably around 4 a.m. in the morning, Daniel's sister texted him and said she was on her way home from work. She works graveyard shift for this company named Nano in Clarkfield, and she happened to pass by a crime scene. Basically, a guy was robbed and hanged on a tree with his head almost unattached to his body. And they said the time the crime happened was the time that we were about to leave our house and pass that way. Do you think everything was connected? Did my friend have a premonition? Who was the headless guy I saw?